All right, Digsy, we are down to week 9 of Digging for Wisdom. Welcome back to the show, Professor Diggs. I'm the Wizard. Yet another wild week of action in week 8, and we're diving into week 9. And now it's to the point now where we're going to go through this thing. And we did a little bit the last couple weeks, but we're going to go through this, and Jason's going to tell you, I already know the 4 teams in it. And it's going to be more districts where you'd be like, I know the playoff teams, it's just for seedings now. And that's what happens. So you got to really hang in there when we're talking about a district that is up for grabs when there's like 6 or 7 teams fighting for the 4 spots, because those are the ones we're going to zero in on. We're going to zero in on them in the show. We're going to do it again for this podcast. So pay close attention because we got only 3 weeks left. You got to make your moves now. And Diggsy, it looks like you got something to say about teams that are kind of clinching their spots here.
No, I'm saying there'll be a test over this. You got to make sure you got to listen to all of this stuff because we will test you at the end to make sure you know all the district seedings and alignments and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just going to go ahead and promote for next week. I think we're going to go kind of to our playoff bracketology mode that we did last year, where we'll probably get a screen up here with the standings and kind of go through everything from that because more than ever, like you said, there are so many districts now where you're looking at things like this could go this way or that way. So I just think having it up there for our loyal podcast viewers will be important for them. Help us.
It'll be a nice little visual aid. You don't get the visual aid this week, but just know visual aids are coming. That test we're doing, make sure you have a number 2 pencil because we're doing it old school. We're doing Scantron. We're not doing iPad stuff. So be ready for it. All right, Diggy, after week 8, you have to dish out some flowers. And I kind of like what you chose for flowers here because there's something that we both noticed from the game that we were all at. The workhorses. Talk to me about these workhorses that deserve our flowers.
Yeah, I mean the workhorse quarterback, I'm sure there's some quarterbacks that deserve it as well. I think of Jacob Janicek, who does everything for Lovejoy. But the running backs right now are doing some insane things. I could think about 4 off the top of my head just last week who made huge waves. Carson James, first of all, he helped Arlington Heights get that 60-36 win over O.D. Wyatt. I think he had 35 to 39 carries for 250 yards. The game you and I were at, Cam Newton had 44 carries for like 160 yards, but he also had like 10 or 11 receptions as well. Yeah. Like he touched the ball 54 times. It was crazy. And then you mentioned it off air. We can't, if we're going to talk about workhorse running backs, Javian Osborne. I mean, it's like Forney's rise has been, okay, if we can give Osborne the ball 30 times, we know we have a really good chance to win no matter what the scenario is. Javian Osborne, I think, has been a big facilitating focus on why Forney has kind of taken the destiny out of other teams' hands and said, okay, we might be back in a serious way. Forney, as we'll talk about, could be thinking about a district championship. It might be shared as it is, but they could be thinking about a district championship. And then in small school, we got tagged on it. H.D. Davis for Wolf City set a Wolf City record. He had 44 carries for 508 yards. I wish he would have had about 100 more, Ward. I was hoping for it. But Wolf City, I mean, what's going on, Ward, with these big 40 to 50 carry games? I don't know if I like that. It almost makes me a little bit uncomfortable when you got these running backs carrying the ball 50 times, like injury. Come on.
We call that the Nick Ralston carries, what we call it. If you guys remember the state championship back in the day from Argyle when he got it like 53 times, but that was the last game of the season, so he had nothing but the winter time to think about it. It's interesting because the guys you mentioned, you mentioned a guy like Cam Newton, half the season he's with, Coach Allison's got his arm around him saying, hey, look, you're not going to get this thing but 8 times. We're playing Memorial. But remember, there's going to be a day where we're going to need you, so stay fresh. Well, that day came. I mean, you said 43 carries, 44 carries, 11 catches. I mean, he single-handedly helped get Hayes Hackney to 300 yards because I was sitting there thinking, how did he get 300 yards? Oh, yeah, he dumped it to Newton and let him do all the work, which is what he did. Then you look at Carson James, like you're talking about for Arlington Heights. He spent a good two series on the bench because he was banged up a little bit. And coach, who happens to be his dad, looked at him and was like, listen, boy, you want to have a dinner? You want to have dinner tonight? You better get back out there. So he jumped back in there and carried some more to get him that much-needed win because of their loss last week to Saginaw. Osborne's the one I worry about because he's going to need to have 30-plus carries if you can at some point bring it down to 20, that'd be great. But when you're in the hole 29-7, 22-0, all bets are off the table. You got to go. So you're right. There is some wear and tear. I don't think as much for Cam Newton, but there's definitely some wear and tear for these other guys.
Yeah, and when it comes to the playoffs, you got to have your guys fresh. I just pulled while you were talking, Carson James. I wanted to get his exact stats: 35 carries, 249 yards, 5 touchdowns. I didn't have to receive, like Cam Newton. He wasn't the dual threat guy, but man, those are a lot of carries. And it seems like there's a reason why in the pros and in the college game right now, there's really a bit of a focus on game management. And I know these are high school kids and they're young and athletic, and they can take it, but I get a little worried when I see 50 plus possessions. That's 50 tackles. I mean, that's a lot of. You saw Hayes Hackney; he could barely walk at times. I kind of gave a shout out to the athletic crew because there was pickle juice, electrolytes, everything, because he was so cramped up in that game. But give Cam Newton all the credit because, like you said, 8 or 9 carries a lot of the year. He was ready for this, and he did not shy away. He did not look tired, and come in the fourth quarter because that's when Walnut Grove really made their rush. So. Shout out to those well-conditioned athletes.
And he only averaged like 3.2 yards per carry, and that can wear on a kid too. You're just constantly getting pounded on. It's like, Coach, you sure you want to run this play again? We just ran it 4 times. All right, I'll go. And he didn't say that. He just kept pounding away until they eventually scored enough to get the W there. And you're talking about Wolf City. I mean, perhaps a small school like that, that's the guy. That's the player you got. So you're going to have to get it if you want to win games. Sorry, HD, you're going to be our RB for this whole game. Get out there and let's go. All right, any other flowers you want to give out?
And also to that end, that Walnut Grove Anna game, they had like 90, 95 plays. I mean, when you have these high-speed offenses, there are some games where 30, 40 plays, that's the game, because we got 40 seconds, we're waiting. So just the style of Walnut Grove as well just makes that a completely weird dynamic with the number of plays. And as you saw, there were several plays where we had whistles, we had to do it again, so he got the hit, but didn't count because, we're on the goal line and had whistles and we called a timeout, but we actually ran the play just in time. So it felt like even more than 50 at times. But another team I want to give flowers to, how about the Coppell Cowboys? We talked about it on this podcast. It felt like, okay, Louisville, it feels like everything is going their way. Coppell has been that team that has been in Louisville's head over the last couple of years. They've won that game by average multiple scores. And I know because you had a camera crew there were a lot of turnovers. There were a lot of mitigating factors in that Coppell win. But I think Coppell, by us giving them flowers, we're also setting up flowers for the gift that keeps on giving, because now we're going to have a very highly motivated Louisville squad who's going to be playing Geyer and who may be playing Lewis or maybe playing Allen in the first round. Could be like 9-1 against 10-0, 9-1 versus 9-1 in the first round.
That'd be wild. We've seen that game before, and they haven't. I don't feel like they've been as evenly matched as we kind of feel like they are now. It could be a wild one, but it would have to be up there at Allen. So that would be tough pickings there for Louisville. So you're right; they are going to be hungry to get some wins and somehow get out of that situation. But we'll have to see how that goes.
But there are still, I just want to make, because I like to be the teacher mode when it comes to this. We still got Allen Prosper. Allen could lose that game and not impact their seeding. If they get to the second seed, there's a case where Louisville may end up first or second seed because of if they can beat Geyer, get into a 3-way tie. And just like a couple of years ago, they had to pull that game into Plano because of the district seeding being the same. So it's not a guarantee that it's going to be at Allen, but then if something happens this week where Allen beats Prosper 42-7 or something, where we're like, okay, Allen, they look like a state championship contender. All of a sudden, that luster may get taken away from that game just because Allen is so good. Just to be clear, I don't want to ruin anything we're going to talk about. I don't expect that to happen, but the way the season has gone, anything can happen.
Exactly. That's the best thing about Texas high school football. This stuff changes week to week. That's why you got to be on Digging for Wisdom every single week, because Dixie will clear that stuff up for you. He also clear up who he wants to give a show to. Who's on the flip side of this deal?
I got to tell a little bit of a story, Ward. You're just going to have to sit down and you're going to take a little bit of a break, because sometimes real life kind of reflects our podcast. I think I have to reset things quite a bit because it happens like every 3 weeks, Ward. Some well-meaning, well-intentioned person asks me, "Where are you going to be on Friday, Diggs?" Like, it's like, do you
Right.
not know me yet? Do you not know what I do and who I am? Because that's a weird question. If you follow me, that where am I going to be? I'm going to be wherever Plano East is going to be, and it's wherever Plano East is not going to be. Then I'll go and I'll go see other games. And as part of that, part of my coping mechanism every year, and it's kind of what gave birth to this segment, is when Plano East has that last game where they're done, they're out of the playoff picture. I play a song by Vern Gosdin that says that just about does it, don't it? It's a depressing old 80s country song. You drink coffee or whatever your favorite drink is, and you can just listen to it, and you just walk away sad afterward, and you're just kind of depressed. So I listen to it about 50 times, and I just stay in that kind of depressed mode.
Why you got to go 50?
Over. 50. I'm the Cam Newton of country music, Ward. I got to go 50 reps when it comes to my sad songs, and then afterwards I'm like, okay, let's look at the future, let's look at realignment, let's go on. So that's kind of where the shovel started. That's my own shovel for my own personality when it comes to Plano East. So because of that, I'm actually going to kind of give a dual purpose shovel this week to the city of Murphy. Okay. Because Murphy is cut in half. Half of the city goes to Plano East, half of the city goes to Wiley. They're both done. So the city of Murphy is getting the shovel this week because none of their participants in their city are going to the playoffs. People in Wiley have a people to go to. People in Plano might have a place to go to within the ISD. But if you live in Murphy, you got nothing. You got nothing. You got no hope.
To play for.
You just got nothing to do.
And since South Fork's sitting there, Bobby Ewing gets a shovel too, and he didn't even deserve it. He takes the shovel.
Well, they just have to get a little bit creative. They could rewrite the season and say it's all a dream. I'm hoping for that, Ward. I'm hoping I wake up and all of a sudden we're back in August and we're at 0-0 and we're starting to talk about Roy City and Plano East again. And it was all a dream.
But all a dream, but it's not. It's oh so real. All right, we have any other shovels to give out? Yes.
And then how about Arlington Martin? I feel like we just got to fully give them the shovel after that. Shout out to Haltom. I mean, my guy Vudrico, as we'll talk about, your guy Vudrico kind of took care of them. But man, even with tiebreakers now, there is a situation that if Arlington and Arlington Lamar beats Arlington, maybe Haltom gets pulled into a 3-way tie. But that doesn't involve Arlington Martin. I think Arlington Martin is done.
Yeah, it's
give them the shovel.
A team like Martin that made it to the playoffs so many years in a row that now they're reserved with 3 games left to play spoiler. Nobody wants to be spoiler, but that's what you got to do to motivate them now. Hey, we can spoil somebody else's shots. All right, let's get into some Week 9 games, starting with some Thursday action out at Northwest ISD Stadium. Euless Trinity heading out to Eaton to take on that Eaton squad and see what they can do with them.
Yeah, Eaton is one of the 2 teams that I think actually have a chance to get into that 4th playoff spot. And it has very little to do with this game, although they could rewrite their history. But that we got Eaton and Keller coming up, and whoever wins that game is only going to have 4 losses. And that kind of is what's going to get you in 4-6A. You got to get to that 4 losses in district. If you could stay at 4 losses, it looks like you're in. LD Bell's going to have 5. Keller Central's going to have 5. Can Eaton, but we've also said, I also said this on the dump board, that if you can pull an upset, if you're LD Bell in week 11, if you're Eaton in week 9, if you can pull that upset, now you can take destiny in your control and take care of business. I don't think any of these teams who are going to be playing Trinity, Byron Nelson, or Southlake in the next couple of weeks have a chance to get an upset. Yeah. But, especially given that Trinity finally looked, they got healthy. Yeah. They looked healthy, and they that came across on the scoreboard against Keller. That was a nice, solid victory over Keller. So I think it's going to come down to Eaton and Keller in week 11, but I think Trinity is going to take care of business. But I'm looking for those intangibles, Ward, because I got to figure out, is it going to be Eaton? Is it going to be Keller? Who's going to get that last playoff spot? So Eaton, show me some intangibles. Maybe you can go out there and win one, but Trinity, if we've kept saying, if they figure it out, they're going to look good. They looked good against Keller.
Yeah, JT Harris looked like a guy that was tired of watching the game from the bench, watching the game from the sidelines, and he was ready to go, and he certainly went. I got to see Wiley East last week as they trounced Naaman Forest. They beat them in all phases in that joint. And now Naaman Forest is in some serious danger here of not making the playoffs. And Rowlett, how about Rowlett? Now they got picked up another win, and this may be the de facto district title.
As of right now, it is. I feel like I need to go over to HBJ and check this out for two reasons. First of all, I haven't seen Wiley East. I've kind of been hard on Wiley East this year because they haven't played anybody, and they're not going to play anybody as the schedule ends up running out. So they're probably looking at a 10-0 schedule. A couple of their wins were a little bit questionable, but you know what? When we got 9-6A versus 10-6A, pick a team, any team over there in 10-6A. Can Wiley East beat any of them? I mean, at this point, I don't know. So I feel like I got to go. And I've seen everybody in 10-6A, so I feel like I owe our podcast fans a chance. I got to go check out Wiley East because I've seen all the teams in 10-6A to see what they can do. And now, all of a sudden, we got to give love to Rowlett, as you mentioned. This is the district championship. Rowlett's sitting there at only one loss. Rowlett's playing great defensive ball. They're playing great situational awareness football. Samuel O'Hara, their quarterback, is just – like, he doesn't make mistakes. And if they can keep Wiley East feasts on mistakes right now. It's like that's how they get the snowball running. Yeah. And when the mistakes don't go their way, they look kind of mortal right now. So I want to go see it with my eyes at HBJ. So I think this is going to end up being my Thursday game. Wiley East should be a favorite, but are they starting to build up the style points? Because the last couple of weeks over Saxe and then last week against Naaman Forest, you see it. It's like you're like, this game's done after the first quarter. It hasn't been that way for Wiley East this year. So can they do that against Rowlett, or is Rowlett going to keep it a low-scoring, hard-fought game? So Wiley East should win this game, but I'm curious about the style points.
And Rowlett should be a playoff team, which is something we haven't said in quite a while. So that's also a good thing to see. Yeah, they miss you over there at Garland this year. So let's get you back over there. This is probably the game I'm going to because for the same reason, I want to see what Pasco's all about. I'll probably be over at Farrington to see Pasco against O.D. Wyatt. There's 5 teams fighting for 4 spots in this district, and one of these 2 teams may be out. I don't think Wyatt is, but maybe Pasco is because they really haven't played that much.
Yeah, but Pasco showed us at least in a half. They showed us against Saginaw, we are good, but they couldn't hang on. And now you got O.D. White, who I feel like is going to have the same issue that Arlington Heights had. They're going to come into this game mad. We just got smacked around. We're better than this. So I think that's going to be kind of that intangible. I think I'm going to take O.D. White in this game for that reason. You got Pascal, who gave up the second half, but I feel like a part of that, I heard that Saginaw, their bus broke down. It was just kind of a little crazy atmosphere over there, and it's like they got off the bus sluggish and then they figured it out. It's going to be a fun game. It seems like every time that you get Pascal, O.D. Wyatt, Chisholm Trail, they're usually pretty competitive games. I think Wyatt's going to win this game by a score.
Okay.
I think he'll be treated to a good match.
Talk to me about Pascal's chances here, because even if they beat Wyatt, it's still not looking that good because they lost to Chisholm Trail, right?
Yeah, but then you start to get into tiebreakers, once you get that win over O.D. Wyatt, because now you're in that 2-loss range because they already lost to Pascal last week, or they already lost to Arlington Heights last week. So now you're in like maybe a 6-2 3-way tie for 2 playoff spots. So Pascal, we may be talking about the shovel if they can't win this game.
Gotcha. All right, there's a game going on up in Frisco, up in 5-5A. Congrats to Lebanon Trail for their win last week, and they're playing a Frisco team that was a tough luck loser there to Wakeland. They came back and took the lead there, but still ended up losing.
Yeah, that was a tough luck game. And the only reason I wanted to bring this out because I heard there was a little bit of an altercation at the end of that game. And Frisco ISD has some pretty standard policies about this. And Frisco is going to be without their quarterback for a half. And I think that's really what makes this them go. So can they withstand that? That's going to be tough for Frisco. Frisco should win this game, but I think that's worth noting now that Frisco without their quarterback for a half, that makes this game a little bit more interesting than previous.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't know that. That's coach's son there. Has to sit there for a little bit. You'd think he would pull him off the field there. All right, Eastern Hills, Carter Riverside. Talk to me about this one. Carter Riverside has pulled off more wins than a win that I never expected. And how are they doing right now? Why do we have this one on the agenda here?
Well, it's fascinating because Carter Riverside beat Southwest, the game you're talking about. Big upset in my eyes. Last week, Southwest beat Eastern Hills. so that you can do A is greater than B,
Okay.
B is greater than C. If Carter Riverside wins this game, they are in the
They're
playoffs.
in the postseason.
And that might
okay.
be one of the best stories of the year. That gets back to that Northside story that you did a few
Right.
years ago, where all of a sudden you're like, okay, this is now a fun story. We may have to send you back out to Carter Riverside if they could win this game, because that is an incredible story. That being said, I'm taking Eastern Hills, but I'm cheering for Carter Riverside in this game because I want to see Carter Riverside in the playoffs. And it seems to set good. I mean, we got A is greater than B, B is greater than C, so they're going to come into this game with confidence.
They got a week to prepare too.
Yeah.
The bye week last week. Interesting. All right, let's get into our routine of going straight down from 3-6A on. Crowley against Mansfield Legacy. This is probably it, man. We got to figure out who's that last playoffs team, and this is going to tell us.
This is going to tell us. And because of three-way ties and situations, Crowley pretty much owned, even though they lost to Saginaw Boswell by 1, Legacy beat Boswell by 6, I believe. So Crowley then owns this, like, okay, we know what we have to do. If we win this game by a touchdown, we've overcome that three-way tie. We're going to get into the 4th spot. But if Legacy wins this game, just go ahead and we got it. We're done with 3-6A. We don't got to worry about anything. Bracketology will be real quick next week with this. Can Crowley do it? They haven't done it all year, so it'd be like, we're just waiting. I feel like they would have the Arlington Martin effect. We keep waiting. It never happens. I think we're going to keep waiting. Give me Mansfield Legacy by a touchdown in this game.
I was going to say, if it's like Martin, you would have went ahead and picked Crowley again, but no, you're not getting burnt.
I'm learning.
Twice. He's learning as we go. 4-6A, you just finished telling us that Keller, we're looking at Keller eating us for maybe that last spot, but they have a winless Timber Creek squad coming through here. But you always hang on that Timber Creek South Grand Prairie game. I'm assuming that's going to come up in your conversation here as well.
I mean, you can mention that, but I think what's important to say with this is if Timber Creek can pull the upset, Keller ISD has some crazy things happen, then we're probably looking at a 3-5 team potentially making the playoffs in the district because of tiebreakers, 4 5-way tiebreakers. So I'm hoping Keller wins this game so we don't have to start running that kind of math, because everybody's going to be cheering for Timber Creek, because if Timber Creek can pull that upset off, Bell, Keller Central, all back into Justin Northwest, are all back into the mix of talking about the playoffs. If Keller wins this game, I think we're back to Eaton and Keller for that last playoff spot. But Timber Creek is good enough because of what you talked about, that South Grand Prairie, to do something in this game. I just think Keller, even in that loss against Trinity, they still played at a high level of that game. I still think Keller is probably the best team in 4-6A on paper right now in that bottom tier.
That's in the bottom tier there. All right, Mound Showdown going to be played up here at Marcus this year. Both teams are not going to playoffs, so I think we're pretty. I mean, Marcus.
I want you to talk about this game, Ward, because this is like the most lethargic Mound Showdown I feel like has happened in the last 10 years.
And yet they still have huge crowds there, because they always have huge crowds. I don't know. Both of these teams are reeling. Colton Nestmeyer's probably not going to play. I think he's done for the year. After what happened in the Gower game, they can always stick in it, and Flower Mound always sticks with this team. Now they're going to have to score points this week. 7 ain't going to do it. 7 is not going to do it. But
when your son's best friend is the only scorer for Flower
Mound, he's a
Mound.
linebacker. Yeah, exactly. And he's a linebacker. I know we got some problems here, but that's what happened last week in their loss to Braswell. So that team's up in arms, but. Mound Showdown, buddy. It's going to be a close one. I still think it's going to be a close one. But giving you a stat, neither one of my sons have seen, and they're seniors now, have seen Flower Mound win that game. So they're going to need to have that happen just so they can have a high school career where they get one win over their rival.
I think they're going to be a little depressed in their senior year. Give me Marcus in the most lethargic Mound Showdown of all time.
Of all times. Hebron against Louisville. These two teams are playoff squads, and we just talked a lot about Louisville earlier. Your thoughts with Hebron coming in there? Are they in for a whooping because of how hungry Louisville is?
Yeah, I think Louisville is going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder that kind of. But the Louisville mistakes? I feel like we talked about this year after year. It's like we keep rewinding this. It's something after another, year after year. Louisville is better than what we saw last week against Coppell. You can't have six turnovers. Is like a 1 out of 100 thing. Like, there's not many games where you're going to have 6 turnovers in a game, especially in a game that meaningful. Louisville plays a clean game. They should win this game by 4 or 5 scores. But can they play a clean game, and can they play 48 minutes? Those are the two questions that seem to plague Louisville year after year. But I think they'll get it straight for this game.
Yeah, I feel like they're hungry. This could be trouble for the Hawks. Game of the week time, Allen against Prosper. It's kind of the game we've been waiting for at 6-6-8 since the daggone district started. We got Allen, who hasn't given up more than 2 touchdowns in a game. Prosper does give up points, but we got that big offensive line. They got the experience of Imhoff and Lachele as their quarterback duo, which Kenny will be talking about this week on the next level. A little heads up on that point. Your thoughts on this game, because it is at Prosper. Does that help at all? Allen really hasn't had any kind of competition this entire year, right?
Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me of the Anna Walnut Grove analysis that we had, because Allen hasn't played anybody. I mean, Cedar Hill is a good team, but they only got that for a half, a legitimate half, because it wasn't one of those, well, we're going to put our second team. We had the rain come in, so they only got a half out of that one. Then playing Midland Legacy, I don't even know why. Allen's got to step up the non-district scheduling game. And I think, for a couple of years they were down. I think that may change this year. Like, okay, we got to be ready for this, especially if we're going to end up in a 9-team district where we're going to be heads and shoulders above, because we are not preparing ourselves. They have not played a 48-minute game this year. Right. I mean, that is a big factor. The conditioning, it's still probably going to be warm when Friday hits. It's not like we're getting the big cold front coming in. It's kind of back into fall weather. Can they play 48 minutes at a high level? Prosper at least can go back, kind of like the South Oak Cliff theory. They can go back and look at Austin Westlake and say, look, this is a state-ranked team. We beat them up. Rockwall Heath is playing as good as anybody in DFW right now. They can say, hey, we had that. That was a full 48-minute game. And then you take that, they're going to have the momentum. Prosper has a great home field advantage. They're going to have great fans. I know Allen's going to bring fans, but it's different. Going to Allen is a different atmosphere. It's like old school Highland Park, Argyle kind of a feel that Allen has when they're at home, that they're not going to have that level. I mean, they're going to bring fans. They'll probably have a sellout over at Prosper ISD, but it's a different feeling when it's the Prosper crew and surrounding you. So I think Prosper has a few intangibles that I like, but Prosper, like you said, defensively, I look at what Allen has on the defensive side of the ball, and I feel like they can lock down so many aspects of what Prosper can do. The running game, I feel like the running game hasn't been consistent. It's like you talked about, they went to Lachelis a lot, that he's their deep threat, but they got D1, they got 2 D1 DBs back there. So, it's like, okay, if they lock down Lathan, who's the next guy? Yeah. They don't have a next guy, so, okay, can we pound the ball? Well, they haven't shown us a game where they can pound the ball 30 or 40 times in a game. So I think Prosper is going to come out. They're going to start strong. They're going to have the wave of momentum. But by the second half, I think Allen is just going to wear them down. I think Allen's going to end up winning this game comfortably by a couple of scores. And I think it's going to be one of those, kind of like the second half of the Walnut Grove Anna game, where, the score might look closer, but if you just look at that second half, it's pretty dominant for Walnut Grove, and I think it's going to be pretty dominant for Allen.
Couple of tidbits on this one. By the way, we congratulated Riley Dodds on 100. Lee Wigginton got number 200 last week, so that's congratulations to Coach Wigginton. He was over in Waco and in Midlothian Heritage and up here in Allen, and he's another guy that just keeps winning wherever he's at. And we're also going to have a second shooter at this game. James Harris is going to be going to this game as well, shooting a story, because the play-by-play guy for Allen, his name is Kerry, and I forget what his last name is. His son is the color analyst for Prosper, so it's kind of a little family war here. And James is going to be running back and forth between each one, getting their broadcasts. Is
that Kerry Reams? Does that sound something?
It's Kerry Lowry, actually. Lowry. Lowry's his last name.
Okay. Yeah. See, I remember them back from my old coach days, because you remember who's the only person on this podcast who has called a state championship game. It's me, Ward. That's me.
Well, I called it my room once. That doesn't count.
You filmed it, but I called it.
That's true. You did call it.
Allen Houston Lamar. You probably sent that game on both TV shows back then.
I probably did. If we had to back then, we would have. We would have had Diggs right there on the call. All right, Princeton Plano West. I tried to talk to you about this over the weekend, and you were telling me that Princeton's a little banged up going into this one.
Yeah, Princeton is more than a little banged up. They're big banged up. And the thing with Princeton, we kept talking about, even going back to the campfire and the district breakdowns back, was they got really good frontline players. But after that, it drops off. It's back to being Princeton. You got Jordan Mosley and Marcus Flowers. Those are the really good players. But after that, it kind of looks like that. And they play both ways. And then Jordan Mosley broke his tibia. So he's gone. And that's basically their best offensive threat other than Marcus Flowers and their best defensive player. Right. And then a couple of linebackers are dinged up. When you play Allen and Prosper, I mean, when Plano East played Prosper, they lost their quarterback. I mean, these are physical teams who are looking to hit you because they only get to play for a half. You know, it's like they are hungry teams that are coached really well, who are playing at a high level, and you go in there and play. It's like a mass unit afterwards. It's like you haven't seen anything like that. These are D1 kids. It's like the District of Doom. They have to deal with that every single week, it feels like, because you are getting banged on by high level athletes. And Princeton got that against Allen, and they came out of that game really banged up. If this game were an even game, I think a lot of people would have picked Princeton, but as banged up as they are, I think Plano West is not only a favorite, they're a big favorite. I hope I'm wrong on this. I hope Princeton's second and third tier, but when I look at their JVs and their freshmen and kind of that backup, it's old school Princeton. It's not, it's like this is a special class that have all been together, kind of like that Plano East basketball team from a couple of years ago. This is their class. This is that special class that they've had. And now that it's a little bit banged up, I think they're going to struggle.
I got you. Banged up. Second unit's not really doing that well. Boy, that sounds really familiar to something. Maybe something I watched this afternoon. We'll talk about that later. 7-6A, Richardson, Jesuit, they both feel like playoff teams. Richardson's out here scoring 60-plus the last 3 games. Put the competition out there. We know it's not, but still 60 points. And Jesuits finally found a way to score. They even put up 21 against Lake Highlands, even though they lost that game badly. I may find myself over here for a half of this game just to see, because I haven't seen Richardson at all.
Tell me your thoughts. Park over there, Ward. I figured you wouldn't go over there because you're not going to deal with the parking.
I probably should go there first, to be honest with you, but I don't trust West Mesquite Creekview game to be close when I get there in the second half. I'll talk about that later with you and figure it out. You tell me what you think about this one.
I want to correct you, Ward, because you're kind of giving you're talking about their 60s or one of those 60s was against Richardson Pierce. Right. That is a solid 60 at that point.
I got you.
That's one of the better 60s that you can have. And we saw Jesuit and Pierce play each other. It was 17-14. Like they just couldn't get out of their own way. True. I feel like Richardson finally has figured it out. I feel like they needed the confidence of the bad teams. It usually doesn't work like that, Ward. It's usually, you play the bad teams and you get that false confidence and you play the real teams and you get hit in the face and it's like, oh, we're back to the way they were. I feel like Richardson got some genuine confidence and some genuine consistency out of that. I think it feels like an upset, Ward, because Richardson has never won a game like this. Last year, they won a playoff game against Vudrico, but that was again a very kind of mediocre, or as the kids say, a mid 8-6A. Richardson, that's their best win because they went 3 losses in the district. They got 4th place. I think this is going to be Richardson's best win in district play in a decade. I think they're going to get it.
Okay. And we probably both feel if they played Berkner maybe later in the year instead of the first district game, it might have been
the way Berkner played against Lake Highlands.
14. They're playing good defense over there, Berkner.
Yeah.
All right, let's go into 8-6A because we got a lot of them on the schedule here. We got to see if Lamar can beat somebody. They're probably in spoiler role right now, and they're playing an Arlington team that needs this win, and God help them if they're looking past them. I don't think they are. Nobody's that crazy to look past teams, but Arlington against Arlington Lamar. Give me your insight on this one.
This is a game that really impacts Haltom because I think this is the last game of any. I mean, you could still have Bowie, South Grand Prairie, who's going to get first, second. But I think for playoff positioning, if Arlington beats this, they'll have wins over Lamar and Martin at that point. I think we got them locked in at our number 4 seed at that point. And Arlington, Haltom, they'll actually be the 3 seed, and Haltom will be the 4 seed. And Haltom will have had wins over Lamar and Martin to kind of buffer that situation where they're going to be locked into their places. If Arlington Lamar can win this game, Arlington beat Haltom by a touchdown. Haltom beat Lamar by a point. So we're not talking about big point differentials. If Lamar can win this game, and it's not going to take a lot for them to win this game. If they win this game by 8, say, depending on, we don't know the tiebreaker rules. We got Matt Stepp out there doing God's work out there, figuring out all of the DEC meetings and stuff. But I can tell you, regardless if it's going to be 4 or 8, if Lamar controls their own destiny, if they can win this game by any number of points, 4 or 8 in that range, they are probably going to win that 3-way tiebreaker, assuming Haltom loses games that they're supposed to lose. Haltom felt like last year Haltom had that ability, but then they won a game against like Bowie or something that we weren't expecting. And then all of a sudden, okay, that doesn't matter. So if Lamar needs to win this game to give it a chance, but what I like about Arlington, they kind of remind me when we talk about Joshua, they seem to be the only team in this district that can play some defense. And we saw when Lamar had to play some defense against, or had defense played against them against South Grand Prairie, they did nothing. When they played Plano West, they did nothing. Lamar works best in shootouts, and I don't think Arlington's going to let it happen. So I think Arlington is going to slam the book on the playoff. Who's going to make the playoffs in 8-6A and beat Arlington Lamar? It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be, you're not going to get a lot of highlights at this game. It'll be like a 21-14 game, kind of like the Bowie game was.
Right. Yeah, and that Bowie game, what a devastating loss there for Arlington to give up a 91-yard touchdown with a minute to play when they're right there to beat one of the favorites in that district, who has Haltom coming up. Haltom's going to need a big game from one guy and one guy only. Federico! Let's go.
The Haltom people were loving the podcast last week. I was getting all kinds of updates. That's 4 touchdowns, Dig. That's 5 touchdowns, Dig. We gave you 6. It's my guy. We don't get points for touchdowns, but we're still cheering them on. That's a big numbers. But the problem with Haltom is when you look at the box score, it's Federico. There's nobody else. It's all right. Federico. Arlington Bowie's got a lot more support. And if things are going well for Haltom, we talked about that at the beginning of our podcast. We talked about how many plays can be in a game. Haltom wants to keep it at the 40 to 50 play level because that's when they're playing Haltom Buffalo Stampede football. I think Bowie is just going to have too much offense, and Haltom is going to have to get in a shootout. Haltom has played a couple of shootouts this year. The game against Martin kind of steps up to a mine, but they don't do, they won that game against Martin, but some of these shootouts, I don't think they can go score for score. And you look back at Richland earlier in the year, it just didn't work out for them. I think Bowie's going to take it to that shootout level, and I don't think Haltom has enough bullets. Federico needs a twin brother. If we had Federico and Rodrigo, I think I'd be picking Haltom in this one. But unfortunately, Mr. Robinson, his parents only had one. So give me Bowie. Give me the Bibbs factor.
All right. South Grand Prairie and Martin. Martin's got 5 losses, got hit over the head with the shovel earlier in the show. And now here they are against a South Grand Prairie team that doesn't like giving up points nowadays and are putting up 50 all over the place. So,
doesn't this feel like the kind of game that South Grand Prairie loses after? It's like the Coppell-Louisville dynamic, like all of a sudden, the name finally comes back. I'm picking South Grand Prairie, friends.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
I just want to say this is just one of those games. Like I told you about Coppell-Louisville, I just want to note it there. Just put a little bookmark. We can clip it if anything happens. I just feels a little bit weird, Ward. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than – I don't think we're going to see that 50-0 game like we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah, they've outscored 107-0 the last 2 weeks, but you never know what's going to happen there. All right, we're fine. There we are, 10-6A. I love it when we get into 10-6A because it's the best district in the state, I think. North Forney at Royce City. North Forney had the week off last week, I believe, and now they're ready for a Royce City squad here that took a loss to Heath. They scored their points, but they couldn't stop Heath. And Heath is a man-child right now with the stuff they're doing over there. But I don't know. Royce City's probably not going to make the postseason. What do they have to do to spoil things for North Forney?
Well, I want to correct one thing you said, but I want to kind of give a little bit of an anecdote
Okay.
because I made one of the coaches in this district mad. My good friend Jeff Fleener. I was telling him so far this district is kind of unremarkable because when I'm doing the dump, I only had to really write 2 or 3 paragraphs about it. And he's like, Diggs, what is unremarkable about this district? And I was like, well, if you look at my rankings right now, number 1, Rockwall Heath has beat North Forney. Number 2, North Forney has beat Forney. 3, Forney just beat Rockwall. That's 4. Rockwall beat or has beat Longview. That's 4. Longview has beat Rockwall. Rockwall has beat Roy City. Roy City has beat Tyler Legacy. Everybody down the line has done what they're expected to do. We have not had one game that's kind of made us go, uh-oh, we got to start looking at tiebreakers and whatnot. And because of that, we have a very weird situation now to where in week 11, we could see like what I kind of call the double jeopardy situation, where we could see a 3-way tie for first and a 3-way tie for fourth. Because if all of a sudden everything happens the way it's supposed to, and then we got Rockwall Heath and Forney in week 11, and we have Roy City. We have Roy City and Longview coming up. If Roy City can beat Longview, all of a sudden they tie with Rockwall, we could have 2 3-way ties in this district, and that could make it remarkable. Roy City, there was a little bit of controversy on the interwebs about that because Roy City is starting to finally feel that pressure, I guess you could say, because, like you said, you got on film, they expected to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they got into this district and it's what we thought it was. And they've kind of struggled. And there's, coaches and parents and all kinds of stuff starting to bicker each other in the fans. And that got put out on social media. Hope they calm it down because that's good coaching.
I hope they do too, because that's a young squad.
It's a young squad.
We hit the heck out of it in that story too. It's young. Let them grow into this deal.
And it's 10-6A, like you said, the best district in the state right now.
Right.
Roy City would probably win 9-6A, but unfortunately they're in 10-6A. Realignment, we don't know what's going to happen in realignment. Maybe they'll get put in 9-6A or whatever the Garland district ends up being. Which you had some interesting information on that, and I've heard it from another source as well, that it doesn't look like Garland.
They're all going to stay up. They're all going to stay up. 6A again. Yeah, even though they got like 4 or 5 teams that have 5A numbers. They don't want the risk of having to travel. From what I'm hearing, they don't want to have the risk of having to gas up these buses and travel so much. So they're just going to stick around the Garland district.
And that's crazy because, we could see a situation, I know you're going to hate this, Ward, where we have so many teams now in the district, they're going to have to send like a couple out like they did 6 years ago when Trinity and Weatherford had to go out to West Texas. I mean, you got to put them somewhere, and that's like a 6-team district that has room for a couple of teams. So I think because Garland's opting up the teams, and I don't think we're going to have anybody go down. Alito's probably going to be coming up to 6A. All that to say, I don't think Roy City's going to get the benefit of getting that kind of a nice alignment because of that information you're talking about. North Forney has had 2 weeks to prepare, coming off of a stinging loss. Oh, that's a bad place to be at. I think North Forney is coming in mad. I think this is going to be the first time I think Roy City might get thumped. They've been in all these games so far, but I think North Forney may take it to them, Ward.
Might be a bad massacre, but we'll see. I always have faith. My man Arnie had like 11, 12 catches last week. So good
he
for
was
him.
Fantastic. They're playing out of their mind. I mean, they were up on Heath at one point in that game. It was a 1-score game in the second half. And this is our team that we thought was number 1 who just beat North Forney. So Roy City can certainly look at that game and say, we hung with Roy City. We can hang with North Forney. I just think North Forney with 2 weeks, I don't think they're going to have an answer for Legend Bay either. I just think the matchup, it doesn't work out for Roy City, in my opinion.
What about Heath heading to Longview? It's a scary place to play. I just talked to some guy. I believe who did I talk to? Mark Henry. Mark Henry's a big guy around here. We talked to him about his first time he ever went to Longview, and he was just in awe of the stadium and how the one side of the stadium is all season ticket holders, which they fill up the whole one side. They have the grassy knoll and like the shrubbery like you'd see at Georgia games, and he just loved it. But is Heath scared of anything? No, they've been to the road. They've already been to North Forney and won. They've been to Highland Park. Nobody wins there. They won there. So they're not going to be scared.
They're not going to be scared. And Longview has been playing so up and down this season. It feels like when Longview, they've been in some shootouts, they've been on the wrong end of just about every shootout that they've been in. So it's like if Longview can hold Rockwall Heath to 7 or 14, that's their chance. Like that's their mechanism. But Rockwall Heath has like scored 35 every game or more. So I think that's going to push them to the shootout. I think even at home, they're a pretty big underdog in this game. I think because of Coach King and the love factor. I don't know if he's back on the sideline yet, but they're still playing for him. And certainly, whether if he's not on the sideline, we're praying for him. Hope he gets back in there much sooner than later. But man, Rockwall Heath, just everything we've talked about. The offense is clicking on all gears right now. I think Heath is a 2-touchdown favorite going into this.
Well, look, we're about to move on to 11-6A, but before we do, who's out? As of this week, who's out of the playoffs between probably Longview and Rockwall?
I mean, Longview already beat Rockwall, so it's
Well,
Rockwall that's
answer.
out. And here's a trivia question. If somebody wants to go research this, I would love it. When is the last, if Rockwall does not make the playoffs, when is the last time a defending state champion lost to a team that didn't make the playoffs in non-district?
That's a good question.
That, I mean, that's probably unheard of.
Let's find that one out.
Put it out there.
The Rockwall Nation will know that mess. All right, 11-6A, Battle Beltline, Cedar Hill, DeSoto. Boy, Cedar Hill got shut down by Waxahachie, which is, I mean, they got under 100 yards. And DeSoto's clicking. We even had Booby Feaster's dad on our show several times talking about how good of a game he's had. So I'm not expecting a close one here.
I'm not expecting a close one. And not only with that, I feel like DeSoto is going to look to make a statement, kind of looking at what Waxahachie did. We're going to try to one-up you. And I think that's going to be bad for Cedar Hill. I think DeSoto is going to have a big day. And we'll talk about that later on in the show as well. But that's one of my motivating factors. I think DeSoto is going to, they could win this game by 49 or more. I think DeSoto is not going to pull off the gas. I think they're still mad about the Duncanville thing. And a lot of people talking about, because the Dallas Morning News headline is we have a 4-way tie for first place right now. And technically that's true right now. I don't think DeSoto likes that talk. I think DeSoto is going to look at this game to make a statement.
They got to sell newspapers. Well, good luck selling a newspaper. They got to sell clicks, hits. So they'll put whatever's out there. All right, Aledo, Richland. Richland loves to score. Aledo could kind of beat you either way. But we haven't really talked a lot about Aledo this year, and they haven't lost at all. They haven't lost their district games. They've beaten the Geyer team. And granted, they're not playing great teams, but they hung in there and beat out Ryan by a point. They could play the hard games. They beat Geyer in a 21-14 game. Richland, I mean, it's their home. That's all I can tell from them is it's a home game, but I can't expect them to compete that much against them.
But then you look at last year, Ward. I feel like I'm going to – all of my evidence tells you that Aledo should win this game like they beat everybody else, probably by 35 or more. But I just go back to last year. It's like something about Richland. Mm-hmm. They're not scared of Aledo, and they play Aledo surprisingly well. But again, I mean, even with that, they still lost. So, picking Aledo to win, I don't think is much of a factor. But if Richland can be competitive, they were competitive against Denton Ryan. If they could be competitive against Aledo, I think that speaks to their playoff run, that they can get, maybe 3 rounds and see what we're going to see in the third round.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. All right, Kirkendale gets.
But I also want to say this as well. Could you imagine? This is popped in my head, Ward. I'm sorry. I was just thinking, if the tiebreakers end up where Arlington Heights ends up seated second and Richland is third, and Aledo blows them out, could we see a scenario where I think Arlington Heights is going to beat Richland in the first round? Because Arlington Heights at their best looked really good, but it was just one game where they looked kind of bad and kind of mortal. But then against O.D. Wyatt, they looked kind of back to where they were. So Richland, I just want you love planning in the future. I just want you to think about this. Richland, Arlington Heights, Carson James, Gibson. Would that not be a fun game?
That would be a fun game. See if they can slow them down. Because they showed Saginaw they couldn't slow Saginaw. They got 50 on them. So we'll have to see. 2 undefeateds taking on each other at Kirkendall, and that's a kind of I told you already, out of those 3 Frisco ISD ones, this is a good place for this one. I would, if I could get to that one, that would be one of the ones I'd go to. I just think Lone Star with all that talent on that side of the ball and Wakeland, but Wakeland, we sit on that Austin Brown play from last year, that 99-yard pick up the fumble and go with it and win the game from last year. But that was at the Star. Tell me, you think could there be a scenario where that something similar happens in this one?
Absolutely not. And not only that, I think Lone Star is mad about that. I think that is like the chip on their shoulder that Rayburn is using, kind of going Coach Mathis style, who is just saying from week one, they keep talking about that. They keep talking about that. We know we were the better team last year. We look at what happened in the playoffs. Look at what happened going on. We need to avenge this win.
Right.
Of course, Wakeland's going into it thinking we beat them last year. Why are we're 8-0? Why are you not talking about us? Their Barstool likes to let me know that they think that they can win this game. But I think the Lone Star Barstool is going to be big and bright deep in the heart of Frisco on Friday night. Lone Star should win this game by 5 scores. Five scores, not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 times. 5 times. 5 times. I'm not going to do a spin-a-rooney, but I would.
Please don't.
If Wakeland wins this game, I will do a spin-a-rooney.
He will. We're going to do something.
I'll do it. I'll film
I want you to walk from Murphy to Kirkendall.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay. Dang it.
I would do anything for love, but I won't do that.
I won't do that. All right, Meatloaf. Tell me about West Mesquite and Carrollton Creekview. Creekview is another undefeated team, but they were like this last year, and then they ran into the gauntlet at the end of the season and came up with a couple losses. You saw them live against North Mesquite where they gave up a ton of points. West Mesquite's not giving up anything ever since that Princeton game. They've only given up 14 or less and a bunch of shutouts in there.
Creekview and Saginaw are the two teams that I keep talking about. Your record doesn't matter. I mean, it's who you play. And I get back to Wiley, so I got to see you. And when I saw Creekview, it was not a good team. I mean, they were playing a not a good team, and they beat a not a good team. I liked elements of Creekview, but they're not big, they're not fast, they're not strong. They're effective, they execute, they're well coached. But I mean, just the Jimmies and Joes are not there for Creekview relative to the big dogs in 5A Division One. When you see Lone Star and you put Creekview next to them, it's like, I think Lone Star's second team would probably beat Creekview. And I mean, that all due respect to Creekview, you got to play who's on your schedule. Right. But last year they had the same schedule. They lost their last 3 games by 90 points combined, and Reedy just went through them like a hot knife through butter. I think the same thing is going to happen this year. I think West Mesquite is going to have a big night. Again, 5-6 scores on this one.
Big win there. All right, well, that's why I'm going to that game first, because that could be happening to us. All right, Burleson Centennial and Red Oak. Burleson Centennial with the big win last week against Tyler. That kind of has Tyler on the outside looking in, or at least they're struggling now. They're struggling. They're still going to have to pull off some wins here. If they beaten teams they probably match up well with, now they're going to, with Red Oak, Highland Park, and Joshua down the stretch here, they're going to have to come up with another one or maybe 2 to get in the postseason. Is Red Oak one of those teams?
When we're just doing bracketology, when a 6 beats a 2, it's bad, but it's not great for the 6 because you still got to get that 2 to come down, and that's Tyler, and you still got to go up when you're the 6th seed. Yeah. So you still need that 1 or 2 more things to happen. I think a couple of the things that will happen. I think Midlothian will beat Tyler High this week, which will help Burleson Centennial. But can Burleson Centennial have that 1 more? And this is basically the most realistic way that they could have the 1 more. Joshua, I think that even with that, if they don't win this game, it's back to maybe being tied for 5th, and that's not great. Burleson Centennial has the ethic that we want to make it to the playoffs. But Burleson Centennial, when you kind of break down that game against Tyler High last week, they got up big. It was like 22-0, kind of like the Forney Rockwall game, but they just Tyler High couldn't figure it out like Forney did. They got an onside kick. They had a turnover, and they got up big on them, and Tyler High kind of fell. Yeah, they folded. They're like, we can't handle that. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Red Oak just because of the style of football that Red Oak plays. I think Red Oak is going to get up big on them and probably win this game by 3 scores.
3 scores. All right. Well, you already told me Midlothian's going to beat Tyler. So what else are you going to add to this game?
I think they're going to beat them. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think you should send a camera crew down, give them Dairy Palace food allowance. At least contract with our friends in East Texas.
I'm not sending anybody to Tyler.
Contacts out there.
We will get Midlothian, but I'm not going to Tyler to get them. All right, that's not going to happen.
Midlothian wins by 2 scores.
All right, how about this one? They don't even get this is a big game, but they don't even get to have Newsom. They gotta go do this over at RL Anderson
But you like
on
R.L.
Friday.
Anderson,
I
better.
do like it. It's kind of yeah, I do kind of like it. I don't know. I
It's
didn't
like
say
Kirkendall,
better.
Kirkendall of
I do
Mansfield.
like it. Tell me your thoughts on this one because Summit played Argyle very good last week, and Carroll Heritage, they took the blessing that Seguin gave them, which was go for two in overtime when they didn't have to, went ahead and took that win. Tell me what you think about this one, especially with Big Brody Weaver out there.
Big Bodie Weaver. He has done everything for Colleyville Heritage, but that's the problem. It's kind of the Jacob Janicek effect that he needs help. He's not getting it, and there's only so much he can do. He threw 5 touchdowns in that game against Seguin, and he did it. He played a perfect game, and it still took, in my opinion, a bad decision of going for 2 in late in the overtime to get that win for them. Now you got Mansfield Summit who took Argyle fourth quarter. Argyle got pushed to the limit, and it's because of their new quarterback Ian Gebhardt. It takes a lot of courage for the coaching staff to bench a 3-year starter, Damaris Bird, who has been that guy, to put Ian Gebhardt in there, and the team has flourished since they put in there. That's opened up Adarian Nettles to have big running games. Ian Gebhardt has had great running games. They still can put Demarcus Bird in for wildcat formation. He can kind of be like the Cam Newton of when he would go in at quarterback. It just gives Summit more options you have to game plan for that you got to figure out. And nobody's been able to really figure it out at least at the middle level. And Argyle almost didn't figure it out. Mansfield, Colleyville Heritage, when they played these kinds of games, have gotten beat bad. You think of Timberview. Timberview got up big on them, and they came back, but still hung on. I think of Red Oak and that style of football. I think Summit is going to win this game comfortably.
Okay, Heritage loses this one. Where does that put them at 4? Or are they going to sweat it out with Seguin? They have Seguin in their back pocket because they beat them. Seguin has no other wins where they can kind of jump over them somehow. No, because they're playing Burleson and Grapevine in the season. Yeah. Heritage is this year. All right, so that would just drop them down to a difficult road game against one of these squads.
But to finish the point, if Colleyville Heritage wins that game, then Seguin Summit at the end of the season matters to get into a 3-way tiebreaker kind of a situation. Okay. So Seguin will be cheering. All of our friends in Seguin will be cheering for Colleyville Heritage to win that game to get to make their game against Summit meaningful. But I don't think Summit is playing really good football. And right now, Summit is at that number 2 spot, which means they'll probably play Anna in the first round, which is one of those games that I hope it's a Thursday night because I'd love to see it.
It's a must see. Why can't you see it on Friday?
Because I think I want to go see Allen Louisville if that game is looking strong.
All right, I didn't mean to take that unprovoked shot at you. I apologize. Walnut Grove and Love. Go ahead. You wanted to say something back.
I was just saying I didn't even take it. You in your head you had malice of 4
I did.
giving me a plain Luis jab. In my head I listened to my 50 repetitions of that. I've moved on to Allen Louisville as a potential first round Friday night playoff game. So I wasn't even thinking about that until you called yourself out on it. So I'm a little bit mad at you for calling yourself out on it.
That's what I was worried
about.
Now
I know what you're thinking in your heart.
Malice. Malice at the Palace. Prosser Walnut Grove against Lovejoy. In my eyes, Walnut Grove has proven that they can do this thing. It depends on how hurt Hackney is, because half the time when he's coming off the field, it looked like he could never walk again. Then he came right back out there. But they're taking on a Lovejoy team that needed everything they could possibly have just to make sure they're in a spot to make the postseason, because they beat Emerson on their last play in a 2-point conversion. There, talk to me about this one. Walnut Grove going into Lovejoy.
Miracle finish. I mean, how many things that had to go right for Lovejoy? They had to get a late fourth quarter stop with like a minute and a half. They had to get a 4th and goal from the 16. They got that. Then they had their extra point blocked, but a offsides or a leverage or whatever it ended up being. And then they ran it in for a 2-point conversion. They were blessed that day. I mean, they were living it right. That's big for Lovejoy. So now they have that momentum, and Walnut Grove is beat up. As we learned, they lost 3 guys at practice the Tuesday of this game. Hayes Hackney was struggling. So you got a team that just had a big win. They still got Melissa on the schedule. You got Lovejoy, who's like, they're playing with house money now. It's like, we lose this game, no big deal. We win it, we're Lovejoy, we're back. I think Lovejoy is going to play a little bit closer than the computer analytics might say, because I think they're going to play loose and free with this game because it's house money, like I mentioned. But Walnut Grove is a significantly better team from 1 to 22, even with their lost players. So I think they'll end up winning this game. But it's interesting because these are the kind of games that it doesn't matter. Even if Lovejoy beats Walnut Grove is still your one if they beat Melissa. It doesn't really matter for them. Lovejoy, it takes away the tiebreaker situation, but they're not in any sort of better playoff position.
Right.
They're looking at Argyle. It's Lovejoy Argyle in the first round right now, regardless of this game. So it's kind of meaningless, but I think there's some pride, and we'll see what kind of pride Lovejoy has in this game.
It's interesting you brought up pride, because in this game, I don't know how much Kaufman is showing us. It's almost like they've fallen into give up mode here now that they know they're not going to the postseason. That loss to Poteet, it's one thing to lose to Poteet, but to lose by 3 scores, pretty bad. And it opens up a door here for Corsicana, where if they can win this game on the road, that will probably make their last game against Ennis extremely meaningful. And if Ennis happens to be Crandall, then, well, that puts up a tiebreaker type situation. But we'll get to that in a second. But for Corsicana, you can have a meaningful game in Week 11, which is something we haven't seen there in a while.
Yeah, I've been covering football. I know I look young up here because it's AI and all the modifications you do to me. Put makeup on, I get the makeup crew. I get Pat Doney's makeup team when you are on this podcast. I mean, how great is that? But one of the biggest games of the year every year was Corsicana Ennis. It was like one of those games that was a rivalry game, and you wanted to see it. I mean, just 15,000 people overflow. Corsicana Ennis, big game. But that game hasn't been meaningful, kind of like the Ennis Waxahachie games, for a long time since the growth patterns have kind of taken everybody a little bit north up there. So I would love personally to see the old school part of me would love to see Ennis Corsicana be for a playoff spot. So I'm gonna will that into existence. I'm taking Corsicana over Kaufman. I'm gonna take Crandall over Ennis, and I think we're gonna see Corsicana Ennis in Week 11 for a playoff spot. Will they have a camera crew, Ward?
I think we will. It's right next to my boy Jason down there, so he can go. Why not? I mean, a lot of the games will be on Thursday anyway. If this one's on Friday, put them over there. Well, you already said I had to rush this graphic up because you straight up told me what was going to happen. But tell me a little more about Crandall and Ennis.
Ennis just 61 Terrell put up on them. Midlothian Heritage put up big numbers on them. Crandall has a really good defense. We got some questions. They gave up 50 to Midlothian Heritage, but they still got theirs against Midlothian Heritage. I don't see Ennis slowing down Crandall at all. I think Crandall's going to have a big numeric statistical game in this one. I think they're going to get at least 49 in this game. I don't think Ennis is going to have an answer for that.
Gotcha. Crandall. Salina and Paris, we all know it. We don't have to address it too much, but we know it's hard times up at Salina right now. They're probably looking forward to being on the road at Paris to play this team, but maybe not necessarily Paris, because Paris is not playing bad football.
No, because it's a weird thing I want to see, Ward, because a lot of people thought Sulphur Springs had a much better chance against Salina than we thought. And if their quarterback didn't get hurt on the first play, who knows? I mean, we didn't really get to see that game. But even with that, Sulphur Springs beat Paris without their quarterback, but it was a back and forth game, a really good game. So now you got Paris looking to make something. How good is Salina? Because again, I haven't seen it, whether it's been the turmoil that's going on in Salina ISD or just the fact that maybe Salina isn't as good as we thought they were. They've been playing a lot of teams closer than we expected. So again, I keep looking for style points. I want to be a believer in Salina. That's my neck of the woods. I'd love to see a 10th state championship or 9th or whatever it would be for them. But right now, I got to start seeing some style points, Ward. So can Salina give me the style points? This is the kind of game that they're going to need to, because if it's a dogfight, I mean, it continues to feed into that narrative because Stephenville isn't having any dogfights over in their neck of the woods.
Yeah, but what's going on up there? They're just trying to survive the season here. If they can get through this thing and get a state championship, even if they don't give you your style points that you need to have, a win is a win with the turmoil going on.
It's a tough 4A. You got to go through Panther Creek again. You got to go through maybe a healthy Sulphur Springs or Alvarado is playing good at times. And then you got Stephenville or West Plains waiting for you. And then I don't know what Houston area team. Are you going to have Columbus or something? I don't know.
You're going to have some, what are we looking at, 4A Division 1? Yeah. It won't be that much to deal with. You probably got a Bay City or El Campo or Sealy actually is playing good.
Okay.
All right, let's go to another tough district. It's funny. This district's got 6 teams in it. The top 3 are it's Sunnyvale, Quinlan Ford, and Canton are amazing. They're scoring ridiculous amounts of points. They give up a few, but they score. I mean, Quinlan Ford, they score what 5 touchdowns a game at least. And then the bottom half is just you got to just sift through it and figure out what's going on. So this is the rare time where 2 of them get to go at each other. And since Canton is undefeated as well, they're going to be both of them by process of elimination. Got to go through them as well. Tell me your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, it's funny because, like you said, Canton 7-0, Quinlan Ford is 7-0. Sunnyvale is the one-loss team. It's like, hey, they're not the undefeated team going into this. Sunnyvale, I keep challenging them for style points because I think they're better than what they've put forward so far in this season. And now we're getting to the point where you got to go against those East Texas schools. They already lost to Pleasant Grove. They're looking at Carthage and their playoff path. You got to be better than that. So if Sunnyvale is playing close in this game, I'm going to start to, I mean, they may get the DeSoto shovel. And what I mean by that is I don't think they're going to win state. They're going to make the playoffs, but I don't know if they're going to win state. So if Sunnyvale can't win this game with style points, they're going to get the non-state shovel.
Yeah. Small little, like the little hoe.
It's like like that. Like the Godfather.
Exactly. All right. Last game we're talking
out
about.
of the state championship round.
I get you. These are traditional powers going at it, and they're back at it again. Pilot Point at Pottsboro, and I'm pulling all over the place because there's too many P's in this joint. But tell me what you think about Pilot Point and Pottsboro.
That's a lot of P's, and think they've both their best win over both these teams have been against Palmer. Look at what I did right there. Look what Diggsy did there. Man, the Pilot Point loss to Lindsay is starting to lose its luster. Every week I keep thinking that Lindsay's going to beat somebody. They just can't. So this game at Pottsboro, I think I'm going to take Pottsboro in this one. Just a non-believer.
Non-believer. All right. Well, it's that time of the day. God bless it. I wish we could fast forward through it. I got to somehow get my 4th win, but I can't seem to do it. Although this is a close one. For fantasy deals, this is a pretty close score. It's within 40 points, so that's a good one. But my own guy, Federico, got me. That's the guy I root for him, and then you're trying to make me not root for him in this week.
We had a weird situation where both of us, our running back was our best player.
Right.
The quarterback
doesn't happen.
Had good weeks, but just our running backs had amazing weeks.
And your receiver didn't do anything, and I still couldn't come up with the win. That was a tough go. So who do we got this week?
And all I need is 6. If I can get to 6, we win it. Yes, and I'm going to go and make this promise to you because I know you gave me the business all weekend in private. You didn't like the fact that you didn't understand that Commerce is in the same county as Roy City. And is Roy City East Texas? Can I take Bryce and Arnie next week without your judgment? I bet you'd let me take Bryce and Arnie.
No,
but why can't I take the Commerce quarterback? It's the same county. Same county, Ward. Look at that.
I'll let you have the rules.
But next week, I'm going to take all 2A players.
No, brother. All right. And then we're going to have to call coaches to get scores. This week,
they all update their scores on Max Preps. I checked.
Okay. This week, we're taking you're taking Trey Ray, who I've already used once and helped me get a win. I'm taking Ziandre. I'm doing my usual thing of seeing a team and then automatically picking a player. They're going up against Denison, so I'm hoping that he stays out there and does a heck of a job for me, get me some points.
Now, if it's a pick 6, or should we give you that yardage? No, we shouldn't do that.
That'd be nice. It would be nice if he did. We'll see how close it is before we decide whether we change it.
And one of the strategies I've been using in this is you got to get a 48-minute game. I mean, because when you're going for the Cam Newton 40 carries versus 9 carries, you gotta have that. And I think Wakeland is good enough to at least go to the 3rd, 4th quarter. And I think we're gonna get Lone Star with a chip on their shoulder. I'm looking for a big game out of Trey Wright.
That's what happened. That's what happened with me and Trey. I mean, Frisco kept dangling around in that game, and he ended up putting up crazy points against when I used him. All right, you're going to use Derek Ward just to get me with a Ward guy. Unbelievable. You're always taking some subliminal shots at me. And I'm going with Adarian Nettles because they're going to, with their 2 little attack now they've got there, the quarterback and the running back, nobody's quite sure who's going to get the rock. He got 140 last year. Now, what's going to hurt me is that probably not going to pass it to him that much. He didn't really catch a lot, but I'm going with him anyway. He deserves it.
Colleyville Heritage gives up 40 regularly in these district games.
I'm hoping against it. Talk to me about Derek Ward. I may be unfamiliar with his work.
He's a really good running back. He was out for a couple of weeks. He's back, so and Crandall scores points and buckets. They have a really good offensive line. You know what they got at the wide receiver, so they got to keep an extra guy over there, which opens up those running lanes for Ward. I'm looking for 200. They can give me 200.
200. Maybe we'll both get 200.
Ward is going to beat Ward.
Because I have a feeling you might get this side of it. Although Julian Caldwell is going to be a star next year. He's a star this year, but he's going to be the cream of the crop as a senior. And then you're going with the old Friday Night Lights deal. If you want to win, put Booby in. And that's what you're doing here. You want to win, so you put Booby in.
Yeah, I think because DeSoto wants to make a statement against Cedar Hill, I think they'll keep the starters in a little bit longer. He's playing both ways. He's hungry right now. We got Papa Feaster who's feeding us stats. He gave us 200 yards last week. I think he can do 200 again this week against Cedar Hill.
Hey, you know what? I wouldn't be shocked. You always do that extra set of research that gets me each and every week, except for 3 weeks. I got to get to my 4 wins like I did last year, but I should try to. Maybe I'll win the next 3. I doubt it, but I'll give it a shot.
All I need to get is 6. Once I get to 6, I've won the championship, the league championship again.
Then that's what winning's all about.
It's all that matters. And I'm catching up with you in Gossett Pick'em. It's just coming up all digs. And I don't even know how you're beating me. Like, you have never won that thing. Like, you've never won a week, like, where you're the top for the week. Like, you're always second, third, fourth. I've won 2 out of the last 3 weeks.
I'm a consistent 8-2 because when you don't do well, you do very 500-ish. Nobody wants to see that. You got your work cut out for you in that deal. I'm probably not going to win. I don't think I am.
I've come roaring back.
Win, but you're gonna
I've almost passed half the crew already.
All right.
And I'm only 5 games back. I got Coach Chris is he's my foil this year. I love Coach Chris.
Gotcha. All right, we will talk week 10 next week, which means there's only 2 weeks left.
Bracketology starts next week.
Excellent. Extra graphics, and don't forget about Friday Night Recap this Friday. All right, Diggy, catch you later, man.